Hi, head types. Leslie Hirschberger here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to support you during these times. And I have something to tell you is that I could feel myself not wanting to talk about this because I'm going through it too. It's like, you know how we're all about competency and putting ourselves out there, that we have to be competent and we have to know everything we need to know before we put ourselves out there. That was going on for me. I've been supporting people for 20 years, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't be going through this. I shouldn't be feeling this. And I have found at different junctures during this time that I don't have any neurological tracks, no sense of resilience, just like you do. I don't know any of us if that has ever experienced a pandemic before. And so I'm just going to share some resources that have been really helpful for me. But first, I want to talk about the 4 things that are challenging for us. First of all, it's this kind of over-reliance on the head center and this kind of hyper-perception. The other is the emotional habit of fear. And this way we withdraw into our heads and almost withdraw from people. Even if we're present with people, we're up in our heads. So talking really fast is always a clue for me that I'm in my head. And then also this thing around competency. And so I want to thank panelists and people who have told me some of these ideas, and also Suzanne Zurcher, who has been a real teacher to me in writing about the centers. I felt like she really, really gets the centers. So talking about the first is this hyperperception. And it's like we need to make all of the pieces fit right now. I don't know about you, but it's like I want to know all the answers. I was telling my husband, I read this article that, how did we get into this? How come the United States, where I live, it has the highest amount of cases? I need to know. I need to understand. I don't know if it's been like that for you. Some head types, it's like, I don't want to know. I can't see. It's too overwhelming in my mind. But we tend to like to make pieces fit. We're attracted to systems that make pieces fit. Systems like the Enneagram, systems, philosophy systems, understanding religion, where it's kind of talking about it from the head, but you don't feel the real connect all the time, talking about all the learning that you have, but not really feeling connected. Integral theory, astrology, science, biology, understanding, figuring it all out. And what can happen is this kind of inner dryness. Have you ever noticed that in yourself, where you have this inner dryness? And there's this over-reliance that we have on visual cues. And we're not paying attention, say, to, smell, touch. Just touch your fingers right now. Can you feel your feet on the ground? Not the thought of your feet, but actually feel your feet on the ground. That's another cue. Helps you be grounded. I remember my teacher, David Daniels, who was a 6, him doing this thing with this activity with us that I loved, and it was called Set in the Post. And we would stand up and we'd go, and just feel our breath, feel our body, feel our feet on the ground. And I remember doing it, feeling totally embarrassed about it. It just felt like too much body, too much sound. I was kind of uncomfortable with it. Because for me, I'd rather read about the setting the post idea than actually doing the setting the post idea, because thinking replaces doing. So what the practice is for finding, getting out of just this head is finding a doing that touches these other senses. And that includes even the more subtle dimensions. If you can feel energy in your body, where you can just, like for me, to just focus on my hand, send attention to my hand, and almost feel the tingle in my hand, the bottom of my feet, it starts to ground me almost immediately. Getting into that physical and emotional realm. And do you remember that line in The Wizard of Oz where Glinda says to Dorothy, you've always had the power in you, Dorothy? And she said, I have? Like, we head types need to know that. Like, I have? And then Scarecrow, the good head type that he was, says, then why didn't you tell her before? I mean, it's like the authority figure. It's like, damn it, why didn't you tell her? And she said she wouldn't have believed me. And I'll find that with head types, that I can be the authority. But what I'm working with head types is for you to find your own authority through that emotional realm and that power that you have in you. And the power comes through the body. Yoga, so helpful. For me, like when I sit and do my meditation practice, I like doing yoga afterwards because it's almost like it gets the emotions into my body. I'll sometimes do the sun salutation to the prayer of St. Francis. Like, make me an instrument of your peace. Me and my body. Where there's hatred, let me bring love. Not the idea of love, but the felt experience of being connected in love. Where there's hatred, let me bring love. Where there's despair, let me bring hope. And just saying that right now, I can almost feel a tingle in my legs. Conversation, and sometimes it can be, with a divine figure to you, a dialogical kind of conversation with a divine figure for you, or it could be with somebody who matters to you. Music gets you into your body. Sing it, chant it. I find sometimes when I read like poetry, I can get, oh my God, I never liked poetry. But when I read it, like lines come out. And when I read it in a group, like something comes out to me. That's what we did in the group that I've been facilitating, which, by the way, you are so invited to. I would love to have you in it. Even if you just come for the meditation and come for my teaching, although I really encourage you to challenge yourself to stay for some of the sharing. Stay for that closing poem. It just makes a big deal because we're connecting to other people. So listen to music, sing the music, dance to the music. Dancing is just a great practice for me to get out of that hyperperception. And the next one is fear. And I don't know about you, but not knowing the future of this pandemic has really been hard for me. It's just a huge challenge. I want to know, when are we going to be back together again? When am I going to be able to teach again? When am I going to be able to see clients? I was going to do this program. And, the web guy's telling me, hey, Leslie, I need to know your unique value proposition. And it was going to be that we come together in real life. It's not just online, that we meet with each other, that we come together. And now we can't. And I don't know when it's going to be, when we're going to be able to. My husband's in the travel business. Income gone. Okay? So for us, it's really important to still the mind because fear gets amped up. It's in the body. Fear is in the body. Your heart races. So the first thing I have to do, I can't still the mind until I drop into the felt sense of my body where I feel the fear. Breathe into it and make some space for it. Just allow it to be there with some kindness for myself and to really feel that. Then once I can feel a little bit of my body, then I can start to still the mind. And there's this really cool practice I learned called color washing. And it's just dropping into yourself and actually like letting yourself almost feel, oops, sorry about that. I was getting this because of course I have to be competent and I have to show you, the actual book, that I saw this in. And I practiced it. I actually practiced it, guys. So it's like, take a big deep breath and then imagine a color. All right, whatever color comes to your mind, and allow that color to completely wash over your head. Start from the left, then start to go to the right, front, back. Allow the color to just wash. Breathe in, and you'll notice that it starts stilling the mind. And I want to thank Ginger Lapid Bogda for that exercise. We did it in a coach training that I was helping her with, and oh my gosh, I found it really helpful. Another thing you can do is focused meditation. So sometimes I get stuck in my head, so it's helpful for me to have this pine tree out front, to just really focus on the pine tree. For you, light a candle, maybe a flower, a photograph, not one that evokes too much, dialogue for this part. It's mostly about just something that'll settle the mind. Okay, a branch, the Buddha, a cross, just whatever comes, just allows you to focus and still. Another way you can still the mind just in relationship is check out your projections. We had types, we project a lot. And the thing you can do is just as simple as saying, I did this with my husband the other day. I said, the story that I'm telling myself about your being quiet right now is fill in the blank. And he's like, thank you, because that's not what I'm thinking at all. Because I do this for a living and because I can feel into other people's, energy, in my own relationship and these personal relationships, it's a lot harder because this is where the rubber hits the road. And it's in my practice with, a relationship practice. The way you can tell it's a projection if there's a lot of emotion about it. It might be a tiny sliver of the truth, but it's not the whole story. Check out your projections and it can help still your fear because when you make stuff up in your head, it's an awful lot. Also do one thing at a time. Do a slow walk. I know a lot, especially some of us like to go for a run because it could feel in our body. I'd also recommend you close it out with a slow walk. Do the dishes slowly. Feel the soap. Feel the warmth of your hand when you wash your hands for the bajillionth time. Feel your fingers. All right, just feel it. Don't make up a big story. Oh, I'm going to feel grateful for it. I'll be really, really grateful if you're a 7. Or I got to do this. I'm a 6. Blah, 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 you know, all of that kind of thing. Slow wash. All right? And just feel your hands without a lot of thoughts. The third thing is this tendency to withdraw into our heads. Have you ever heard of Rilke? I love this poem. Be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. They're like locked rooms. They're like books that are now written in a really foreign language. In other words, we don't know the answers. Do not seek the answers, which cannot be given to you, because you would not be able to live them. We have to live this stuff. We haven't been through this before. We have to live it. We have to be in it. So one of the ways you can get yourself working with withdrawal is journaling. Bring the body into it. Maybe do a collage. You know, I have all these magazines up there. Cut them out, touch them, glue them on. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just take some sort of journal like this. I've got this little journal, all right? And just like glue the pictures into the journal. One of the things I did the other day is I drew in my journal and then I wrote down every word that I was feeling. I have this feelings inventory. And I just wrote down, look how many feelings I felt in one day. Write that down. And don't write the feeling down until you can feel it again. Not as an idea, but you feel it. Like I felt tender, felt regretful, felt alienated, felt curious, felt lost. I felt that all in one day because feelings come and go, and it's helpful for us to know our feelings. Allow space when you come into your story as you tell the story of how you're feeling, and really it's helpful for you to tap into the past. We head types can really avoid the past. Open a photograph and feel the feeling of it, just slowly. If that feels overwhelming, maybe take a walk in nature and pick up an object in nature and just look at that nature and say, hey, how is this a reflection of me, of my story? And allow space for sadness, grief, regret, and allow space for your joy and celebrations. All right, you know where you tend to overemphasize, and I don't think it's just 6s are overemphasizing all the bad stuff, right? And that 7s are just, always in the positive, happy land. That's not my experience. And you 5s, you can get overwhelmed by feeling. This is a way for you to kind of bring that inner child online, where you can feel safe of taking some time for it and allowing all of your feelings. And also we head types, it's really important for us to touch our anger because it usually has something to do around our feelings of powerlessness, feeling taken advantage of. As you make space for your anger, it might start getting turned on yourself. You might start feeling like, how did I collude with making this happen? It's not just 6s that I hear this from. It's all of the head types. Maybe you didn't speak up in the present moment. Maybe you didn't act on your own behalf. Maybe you jumped to the headspace of trying to figure this out and analyze this thing without using I language of how do I feel in this moment. And you didn't share where you were in the present moment. You kind of waited. You jumped into your head. I got to get it all figured out before I can speak to it. It's one of the things my sister said to me. She's a heart type. She says, it's like you have to wait sometimes, Leslie, to get it all figured out before you can say it to me and say it out loud. All right, because it feels overwhelming to say how I'm feeling in the present moment. And when we get to anger, we're going to get to that place where the authority didn't do what was right. They didn't take care of me. And when you start touching on those felt details, you can get angrier and angrier. So what I would suggest, something that I found really helpful, is I'll sometimes just like push against a tree and just really feel it. Not just like, oh, this is a really interesting activity. I'm going to push, maybe I'll teach this. I'm a 7, I'm going to plan to teach pushing against a tree, and I'll start writing a lesson plan instead of feeling the tree, feeling my body push up against the tree. All right, and feel that anger. I do this other thing where I'll kind of punch it out and go, all right? It just feels good. My teacher, David Daniels, would do this thing called setting the post of and just really feeling the anger of jumping up and down. And when I do that, head types will just be like, oh my God, it feels overwhelming. It can feel overwhelming for us to feel our anger. So when you can do it by yourself, when no one's there, just allowing it to move through your body, and it starts to give you some clarity. And another way to work with this piece around withdrawal is reach out, talk to someone, make I statements, share how you feel in the present moment. I have found it helpful to just share with my husband, where am I with this right now? And this will require you to slow down. The biggest thing I do when head types are sitting there is we just really work with slowing down and feeling our feelings in the present moment. And move out into a relationship. If it, one that it kind of balances what's going out in head, call someone. If it feels like too much, touch your pet, touch a tree, have a slow conversation at the cemetery, or somebody who you loved who's no longer here, who died, and just really looking at them and maybe a slow conversation with them. Or an image of the divine that you feel connected to. Just do something that feels right for you. And now I'm going to bring you to this final one, is this thing around competency. It's just like, I know for me, like, some of us have lost our livelihood. Some of us have lost, just that sense of familiarity, our person that we can kind of really, feel capable. I'm noticing that for me, that not being able to teach, just doing this is helpful for me, and imagining that you're sitting out there. Because what can happen for us is we can wait too long to put our stuff out there, to put our thoughts out there. We're fear of looking foolish, fear of being wrong, embarrassment, maybe even over something that feels small. Like, why am I so upset about this? Why does this bother me so much? For me, the story, it's like, I do this for a living. This shouldn't be so upsetting to me. Like everybody's been through a pandemic. All right. It's helpful for me to just go to someone who's important to me and say, you know what, this is scary. And let them hug me and not say a lot of words, to just pause and allow myself to receive somebody else's presence. Speak out, too, on something that matters to you. Watch your projections. Again, own your own story. Use I language. Sometimes we head types are afraid of taking a stand. We might maybe talk about the idea instead of how we feel about it. Sometimes we can get stuck in ambivalence. And ambivalence itself is a position. All right. Cultivate courage also by completing something without it having to be, just shiny and good. I use that as a 7 language. 6s, I know that feeling, a feeling like there's some authority out there who's going to find that one thing wrong. You're going to get doubted. You're going to end up in court with a lawsuit. For 5s, I won't look like I know what I'm talking about. I want to be wise. Competency is so big for us. All right. So again, it's like, be patient, with all that's unsolved in your heart. So, I'm just going to invite you also to know that I've got these support sessions, and I would love for you to join me. The link is below. And if you have other resources that I didn't name, write them down there. And if you want to address which one of these, that you find it helps, identify what it is. Remember, it's hyperperception, getting stuck in the head, withdrawal from others into our heads, this need, the fear as a dominant emotion, and this need for competency. And I would love to see you in the class. You can come to one, come to all of them, but I'm actually facilitating it with somebody who's also a head type, and she's just really good at holding that kind of gentle space. So I'll see you Wednesday. If not, just right below, and I'm thinking of you. Take good care of yourself.